The story begins with a flashback from 8 years ago in Germany. Kiritsugu Emiya and his wife Irisfjell von Einsborn welcome the birth of their daughter Iliasfjell. Though Kiritsugu fears he will lead Irisfjell to her death in the upcoming Fourth Holy Grail War, she assures him that he is a good man who will fulfill their ideals. 3 years ago, the priest Kairi Kotomine learns that he has been chosen as a participant for the Holy Grail War. Kairi's father Raisai Kotomine, the war's moderator on behalf of the Church of the Eighth Sacrament, and Tokiomi Tosaka, another participant, arranged for Kairi to become Tokiomi's pupil in magecraft in order to give Tokiomi an advantage and help Kairi get over the death of his wife. 1 year ago in Fayuki City, Karya Madu visits his childhood friend Ai Tosaka and her daughters named Rin and Sakura. Karya is shocked to learn that Sakura has been adopted by the Madu family to be an heir who can use magic, and he is horrified to discover what has been done to her. Confronting his father Zauken Madu, Karya strikes a deal to implant himself with parasitic worms that will give him the magic needed to participate in the upcoming war, on the condition that if he wins the Grail, Sakura will be freed and returned to her family. In the present, Kenneth Elmeloy Archibald dismisses and humiliates one of his students named Waver Velvet, who theorizes anyone can be a great mage by hard work and practice rather than by virtue of their bloodline alone. Waver decides to prove his teacher wrong by stealing Kenneth's artifact, which is needed to summon a servant, in order to join the war himself. As Kairi, who has now summoned his servant assassin, and Kiritsugu learn of each other's skills, they are disturbed by how they cannot know what the other man's goals for the war are. After receiving the scabbard of the sword Excalibur, Irisfjell is hopeful that they can summon Saber, but Kiritsugu worries that Arthur's chivalry will clash with his pragmatic methods. As the participants summon their servants, Kiritsugu and Irisfjell are stunned to see that the summoned Saber is actually a woman. Meanwhile, Waver has a hard time commanding his servant Ryder, as Ryder is more interested in how the world has changed since his time and intends to conquer it once he wins the war. Saber has formed a poor opinion of Kiritsugu, considering him cold-hearted, but is surprised to see him have a tender moment with his daughter Ilia. Saber also admits that she admires Kiritsugu and Irisfjell's wish to save the world, as she also wishes to save Britain. In Fayuki City, a serial killer named Ryunosuke Oryu has murdered an entire family except a young boy to summon a demon, but inadvertently calls the servant Castor. When Oryu offers the boy to Castor as a sacrifice, Castor pretends to let him go, then kills him with a horrific monster. Oryu is overjoyed to meet someone as sadistic as him and vows to follow Castor anywhere as his master. Upon learning that the seventh and final master has been chosen, Kairi orders Assassin to kill Tokiomi, only for Assassin to be killed by Tokiomi's servant Archer while attempting to break into his mansion. Kairi announces his resignation from the war due to Assassin's elimination and is granted asylum by Raisai. However, this is actually a ruse by Kairi. Raisai and Tokiomi as Assassin is not just one person but several dozen people. With everyone else believing that he is out of the game, Kairi can send the Assassins to spy on them without suspicion. Waver informs Ryder of Assassin's demise, but the latter is only interested in defeating President Clinton, acquiring his country's military weapons, and having a good time. Irisfjell and Saber arrive at Fayuki City to meet up with Kiritsugu, but decide to tour the city since this is Irisfjell's first time abroad. Meanwhile, Kiritsugu meets up with his assistant Maya Hisao, who informs him that the other masters believe Irisfjell is Saber's master and that she has smuggled in the guns they need for the war, including his contender pistol. As Irisfjell has a good time at the beach come nightfall, Saber detects another servant at the harbor. Once there, they encounter Lancer, who challenges Saber to a duel. Saber and Lancer fight while complimenting each other on their skills and chivalry. At the same time, Kiritsugu and Maya are scouting the battle, with Kiritsugu spotting Lancer's hidden master. As he is about to snipe him, Kiritsugu spots Assassin, who is relaying the battle's information to Kairi and Tokiomi. Lancer's master orders him to use his noble phantasms called Gidirg, the long red spear that cancels any magic, and Gibuid, the short yellow spear that inflicts wounds that cannot be healed. From these, Saber recognizes Lancer's identity, while Lancer discovers Saber's identity after using Gidirg to temporarily dispel the invisibility spell on her sword Excalibur. Saber, whose left arm tendon was wounded by Lancer's Gibuid, and is about to give it her all when Waver and Ryder, who were watching the battle from afar, suddenly ride down to the harbor on Ryder's Gordius wheel chariot, interrupting the battle. Ryder introduces himself to Saber and Lancer, asking them to join his army, but they both decline the offer. Kenneth reveals himself as Lancer's master and mocks Waver, but Ryder defends him. Soon after, Archer joins the battle against Berserker, Karya's servant, who uses a noble phantasm called For Someone's Glory, a black fog that envelops him and prevents all attempts at gauging his strength. Archer attacks Berserker with his noble phantasm called Gate of Babylon, transforming his sword into a key to unlock a special vault containing a vast number of weapons, but Berserker keeps evading and using Archer's weapons against him. To prevent Archer from exposing his noble phantasm further, Tokiomi expends a command seal to order him to withdraw from the battle, much to Archer's displeasure. Upon seeing Saber, Berserker attacks her, revealing his second noble phantasm called Knight of Honor, the ability to turn anything he wields into a noble phantasm. Lancer defends Saber out of chivalry, but Cainith uses a command seal to force him to assist Berserker and kill Saber. However, Rider intervenes and incapacitates Berserker, who retreats and warns Cainith to withdraw or else he will side with Saber and defeat Lancer. After Cainith and a grateful Lancer retreat, Rider tells Saber he will not fight her or Lancer until their duel is finished. Elsewhere, Castor watches the battle through a crystal ball and thinks Saber is his long-lost love, while Kairi discovers that the church was being spied on by a familiar. Irisfiel and Saber are driving to the Einsborn castle when they encounter Castor, who believes Saber is Jean d'Arc, but Saber tells him that he is mistaken and drives him away. Returning to his lair, Castor is convinced that Jean has lost her memories. At his hotel, Cainith scolds Lancer for failing to kill Saber. Lancer is defended by Soli Ui Nuabari Sophia Rai, Cainith's fiancée, who is maintaining Lancer's existence by supplying him with mana and has fallen for him due to the beauty mark under his right eye. When the hotel's occupants are ordered to evacuate due to possible arson, Cainith realizes that Saber's master has come for them. After making sure all civilians have evacuated, Kiritsugu and Maya blow up the hotel using explosives. Maya is found by Kairi, but escapes thanks to Kiritsugu's smoke bomb. When the assassins inform Kairi, Raisai, and Tokiomi that Castor and Oryu have been kidnapping and sacrificing children, Raisai is disgusted by their pointless murders and their jeopardizing the war's secrecy. In a meeting between Archer and Kairi, the former convinces the latter to spy on the other masters and find out what drives them in order to discover his own desires. Raisai informs all the active masters that the war is to be put on hold until Castor, whose killings of children are attracting public attention, is destroyed, with an additional command seal as a reward. At the Einsborn castle, Kiritsugu plans to use the hunt for Castor to attack the other masters, despite Saber's protests that they should give priority to stopping Castor's atrocities. As Kiritsugu confides in Irisfiel that he would rather escape with her and their daughter and live in peace somewhere, Irisfiel detects Castor arriving from the forest with more children to be sacrificed and sends Saber after him. Saber is ambushed and cornered by Castor's noble phantasm called Prelati's Spellbook, which enables him to summon monsters, until Lancer appears and joins forces with her. As Irisfiel and Maya leave the castle, Cainith, who had survived the hotel bombing thanks to his volume and Hydragerum, a giant magical blob of mercury infiltrates the castle to duel Kiritsugu, who evades Cainith by using his Calico M950 and launches a surprise attack with his contender pistol. Irisfiel and Maya are about to escape through the woods until Irisfiel detects Kairi coming their way. Instead of evading him, Irisfiel and Maya decide to confront him in order to protect Kiritsugu. However, both of them are defeated by Kairi with his extraordinary abilities. Meanwhile, Kiritsugu is able to wound Cainith with his contender pistol. Believing the attack was a fluke, Cainith decides to increase the defense of his volume and Hydragerum even further. Saber and Lancer continue fighting Castor's waves of demonic creatures, which prove limitless due to his noble phantasm. Saber manages to clear a path for Lancer, who pierces Castor's grimoire with Gidir, cutting off his source of mana and instantly destroying his minions, causing him to flee. After hiding from an enraged and injured Cainith, Kiritsugu finally appears and shoots him with his contender again. Because the contender uses special anti-magic bullets, Cainith's volume and Hydragerum not only fails to protect him but amplifies his injury significantly, causing him to fall unconscious in a pool of his own blood. Lancer arrives to save his unconscious master while Saber rushes to save Irisfiel from Kairi. As Kairi interrogates Irisfiel about Kiritsugu, an assassin informs him of Saber's approach, leading him to stab Irisfiel before fleeing. Irisfiel survives thanks to Saber's magical healing scabbard Avalon implanted inside her, and goes on to heal Maya. Cainith wakes up with his body tied to a bed. Sophia tells Cainith that the magic circuits inside his body were destroyed by Kiritsugu's bullets, and that he can never use magic again. She offers to become Lancer's new master, but realizing that it's because Sophia has feelings for Lancer, Cainith refuses. He eventually concedes after Sophia begins to break his fingers in retaliation, and relinquishes Lancer's command seals to her. Despite Sophia becoming his new master, Lancer wishes to remain loyal to Cainith, but Sophia convinces him to keep fighting with her using Cainith's honor as a pretext. Kiritsugu decides to hunt Kaneth down despite Irisfeel and Saber's wishes to stop Castor. Meanwhile, Waver and Ryder manage to find Castor's lair, where they are horrified to see the mutilated bodies of his victims. Before setting Castor's lair on fire, Ryder kills an assassin targeting Waver and drives off 2 more. With Waver and Ryder now knowing their secret, Tokiomi orders Kairi to send his assassins to spy on them. The next episode focuses on Rin, who is Tokiomi's daughter, and her involvement in the Fayuki City kidnappings. Despite her young age, Rin is determined to follow in her father's footsteps as a great mage. With the Holy Grail war starting soon, Tokiomi sends Ai and Rin away for their own safety. At Rin's new school, several children, including her best friend Katon, have been kidnapped by the Fayuki serial killer, later revealed to be Aryu. Wishing to save Katon, Rin heads to Fayuki City alone. Using a mana detector gifted to her by her father, she eventually finds Aryu using a magic bracelet to hypnotize children. Rin follows Aryu to his hideout, where she is found by him. Rin overloads Aryu's bracelet with mana to destroy it, incapacitating him and freeing the children from his control. With everyone safe, Rin heads home only to be ambushed by one of Castor's monsters. However, Karia comes to her rescue and later hands her to Ai. Kairi, who had been spying on them through assassin, orders his servant to continue monitoring Karia. Saber is surprised by the sudden arrival of Waver and Ryder at the Einsborn castle. Ryder declares his intention to have a peaceful discussion with her and Archer on the subject of kingship and the wishes they want the Grail to grant. Archer wants it merely so that people can't steal it from him, while Ryder wants it in order to be reincarnated and get his dream of world conquest. Saber argues that a king should serve his people selflessly and wishes to use the Grail's power to save Britain. Ryder criticizes her, saying that Saber's emotional distance from her subjects led to their dissatisfaction, and proposes his own ideal, namely that people should serve the king whose extravagant ambitions inspire them in turn. Their talk is interrupted by the arrival of the assassins. When they rebuff Ryder's offer to join the feast, he summons his noble phantasm called Ionian Heteroi, composed of the vast number of loyal soldiers who also became servants after their deaths. Ryder and his army easily decimate every single assassin. With their meeting over, Ryder tells Saber that he no longer recognizes her as a king and departs. A conflicted Saber reveals to Irisfeel that one of her knights left Camelot because he was dissatisfied with her rule. Thanks to the information provided by the assassins before their annihilation, Tokiomi and Kairi now know about Ryder's noble phantasm and decide to let him attack the other servants first before engaging him. While Maya transports Irisfeel and Saber to their new base of operations, Kiritsugu reviews his intel about the other participants' whereabouts. At their new base, Saber points out Irisfeel's odd behavior, which forces her to admit that her powers have weakened. Archer questions Kairi about what he learned by spying on the other masters and points out that Kairi has shown an unusual degree of interest in Karia, despite the minimal threat he poses. From this, Archer concludes that Kairi enjoys seeing the pain and suffering of others. Though initially reluctant to acknowledge his dark nature, Kairi eventually gives in, at which point the command seals reappear on his hand, signifying that he is still meant to be a contestant. Since he currently has no servant, Archer hints that he should kill another master and take control of their servant. Oryu and Castor return to their lair and are dismayed to see their artwork destroyed by Ryder's fire. Oryu cheers Castor up by sharing his twisted view that God, whom Castor hates the most for Jean's death, is just a spectator who enjoys seeing humans do whatever they want. Impressed by his master's beliefs, Castor plans a grand spectacle for God to look upon. Meanwhile, Waver has second thoughts about whether he is a worthy master for Ryder, but Ryder encourages him to believe in himself. Suddenly, Waver, Ryder, Irisfeel, and Saber sense magic from the Mion River. When they arrive, they witness Castor summoning a giant demonic monster. Ryder informs the other contestants and they all agree on a temporary alliance to stop Castor before his monster destroys the city. With Ryder leading the vanguard, Saber joins him to give Lancer an opening to use his spears on Castor. Saber, Lancer, and Ryder struggle to prevent the demon summoned by Castor from reaching the shore, as it regenerates at an astounding pace, making it difficult to destroy. Kairi and Raisai Kotomine discusses plans to cover up the incident. As Archer and Tokiomi Tosaka watch the battle aboard Archer's aircraft named Vimana, Tokiomi pleads with Archer to assist in destroying Castor, but Archer refuses after sacrificing 4 of his weapons to damage the beast. A pair of jets are caught in the battle while patrolling the area. One of them is consumed by Castor's demon, while the other is hijacked by Berserker, who engages in aerial combat with Archer. A crowd of bystanders begins to gather along the riverbank to witness the battle. Karyamadu confronts Tokiomi over his treatment of Sakura, and is enraged when Tokiomi simply dismisses him by saying he wanted both of his daughters to become mages instead of being a part of the common masses. Castor's master Runasuke, who was watching from the riverbank, is sniped and killed by Kiritsugu Emiya. Castor senses the death of his master and vows to fulfill the promise he made to him. Kiritsugu deduces that Castor's demon is an immortal being that will regenerate itself if even a small piece of it is left, and that Saber is the only servant with a noble phantasm strong enough to destroy it. As Archer and Berserker continue to battle in the sky, Saber and Rider are forced to retreat from Castor's demon to rethink their strategy. Rider proposes to transport the demon inside of Ionian Hederoi, where his armies will hold it off as long as they can, while Saber and Lancer find a way to finally destroy it. Kiritsugu calls and explains to Waver Velvet how they will defeat the demon and tells him to inform Lancer about Saber's noble phantasm. Lancer realizes what Kiritsugu means and destroys his Gibuid to allow Saber's wound to heal and fully use her noble phantasm. Meanwhile, Tokiomi defeats Karia by burning him with a blast of fire and causing him to fall from the building. But Kairi later finds Karia and decides to heal him. Berserker destroys Archer's Vimana, but is drawn by the unveiling of Saber's sword and begins attacking her instead. Lancer and Archer attack Berserker and destroy his jet. With the coast clear, Kiritsugu fires a flare gun to signal Waver where Rider should transport the demon. With the demon in position, Saber uses Excalibur to finally destroy the demon along with Castor, who has a vision of Jean before his death. With the threat over, Rider and Archer discuss whether Saber's life as king was incredible or tragic before both leave, with Rider hoping to duel Archer in the future and Archer now smitten with Saber. Kenneth Archibald visits Raisai and asks for his reward for Lancer's role in defeating Castor. Raisai agrees to reward Kenneth with a command seal. But after receiving it, Kenneth immediately shoots and kills Raisai to ensure that no other masters can get one. During the battle at the Mion River, Maya Hisao finds Sophia and cuts off her command seal-bearing arm before kidnapping her. Kenneth scolds Lancer for not protecting Sophia and mocks him. Saber and Irisviel von Einsborn, tipped off by Kiritsugu, arrive at Kenneth's hideout, where Saber and Lancer decide the time is right to finish their duel. Kiritsugu confronts Kenneth while holding Sophia at gunpoint, and gives him a contract of J's that will prevent Kiritsugu from killing him and Sophia if he uses his last command seal to force Lancer to kill himself. Desperate to save his fiancée, Kenneth agrees to the deal, causing Lancer to curse everyone around him, especially Saber, before he dies impaled on his own lance. However, since the contract only binds Kiritsugu from harming them personally, Maya immediately shoots Kenneth and Sophia, killing the latter. As Saber ends Kenneth's suffering, she confronts Kiritsugu for the terrible and dishonorable things he would do to win the Grail. Kiritsugu counters that there is nothing honorable about chivalry, as all war is hell, and he will do anything, including great evil, to fulfill his wish to save the world. As Kiritsugu leaves with Maya, Irisviel collapses from exhaustion. After Tokiomi hears from Kairi about Raisai's unexpected death, he proposes forming a new strategy. Archer believes that Kairi is furious upon missing his chance to be the one to murder his own father. Irisviel and Saber, being informed by Maya, heads to the church to discuss with Tokiomi his proposal to form an alliance. Tokiomi visits his daughter Rin, giving her a magecraft book and some wisdom before going to the church. During the meeting, Tokiomi suggests a temporary alliance to defeat the other masters first. Irisviel agrees only to a temporary truce provided that Tokiomi complies to having Kairi leave the country and be no longer involved in the war. As they depart, Irisviel reveals to Maya that she is the embodiment of the Holy Grail in human form and will soon die to create the Grail near the end of the war. So Maya promises to protect her until that time comes. Meanwhile, Kairi reveals to Archer that his father's dying wish was to leave Kairi the remaining command seals, restoring Kairi's ability to contract with a servant. The secret reason behind the war is that the Holy Grail can be activated only if all 7 servants are sacrificed. Tokiomi has been reluctant to use his command seals, as he needs at least one to force Archer to kill himself. Furthermore, Kairi still wants to explore his dark desires, and Archer yearns for a more stimulating master. Later, he meets with Tokiomi, who entrusts him with the guardianship of Rin should anything happen to him, and an Azoth dagger as a symbol of his completed apprenticeship. Kairi stabs Tokiomi in the back with the same dagger, saying that even his own father and master never really understood him. With Tokiomi dead, Kairi and Archer form a new contract as master and servant. When Kiritsugu was a child, he lived on Alamango Island in the Philippines with his father Noritaka Emiya and his father's assistant, a local girl named Shirley, whom Kiritsugu was smitten with. Noritaka conducted research on immortality using plants, which had Shirley convinced that this would one day change the world, as she hoped that Kiritsugu would follow in his father's footsteps. Before leaving one morning, Noritaka tells Kiritsugu to stay in the house, after the former believes that someone went into his lab the previous night. However, Kiritsugu went out to search for Shirley instead, only to find her at her house in a frenzy devouring live chickens. Shirley revealed that she went into the lab and used the immortality formula on herself so that people could appreciate Noritaka. Unfortunately, it turned her into a dead apostle, a type of vampire created by magecraft. Shirley asked Kiritsugu to kill her before she could infect others, but unable to do it, he instead fled to alert the church, allowing her to infect the entire village. As chaos spread across the island, the church executors and the Mage Association enforcers arrived to stop the outbreak and cover up the incident. Kiritsugu was saved by a mercenary named Natalia Kaminsky, whose mission was to eliminate the mage responsible for the outbreak. Kiritsugu confronted Noritaka over his work and its consequences, but the latter simply shrugged them off as an accident and planned to continue his experiments elsewhere, leading Kiritsugu to kill his own father as a result. Emotionally broken and with nowhere to go, Kiritsugu agreed to escape with Natalia, with his ideologies having taken shape. After leaving the island, Kiritsugu began living with Natalia, who trained him to become a mercenary like her, and they traveled around the world on various missions for several years. Due to his unique magic, Natalia removed several of Kiritsugu's ribs and uses them to create 66 magic bullets that have a devastating effect against mages. Later on, Natalia and Kiritsugu were assigned to kill Odd Borzak, a dead apostle mage who controls bee familiars that turn their victims into ghouls. While Natalia boarded the plane that Borzak had been taking from Paris, Kiritsugu headed to the destination in New York to kill the mage's associate there. Both Natalia and Kiritsugu successfully eliminated their targets. However, Borzak was concealing bees in his body, which turned all the passengers and flight crew into ghouls, forcing Natalia to secure herself in the cockpit and await for Kiritsugu to carry out his plan. As her plane drew closer to New York, Natalia and Kiritsugu talked through radio, reminiscing about the time they spent together and the bond they shared. When her plane was in view, Kiritsugu used a Type 91 MANPADS to blow up the plane in order to prevent a Sidowite infestation. Before he pulled the trigger, he told her that he was glad to have her as his mother. Kiritsugu then collapsed in grief over losing another loved one. Back in the present day, Kiritsugu visits an ailing Irisfeel in the storehouse. She gives her husband the scabbard Avalon and asks him to bring their daughter Ilia to see Japan once the war is over. Learning from Maya that Saber has gone to Babel Rider, Kiritsugu assigns Maya to protect his wife while he goes to assassinate Tokiomi. Meanwhile, Waver heads to the forest where he summoned Rider in order to replenish his mana before Rider's intended fight with Saber, whom he wishes to battle to set her straight on what it means to be a king. Karya has a nightmare in which Berserker speaks to him before awakening, chained in the cellar of the Madu house. To heal Karya, his father Zalkan Madu forces him to swallow the crest worm that first tasted Sakura's purity. Irisfeel talks with Maya about the latter's past as a child soldier and implores her to live her own life after the war. She then tells Maya of her wish that this war will be the last so that Ilia can live a normal life. At the same time, Kiritsugu arrives at the Tosaka mansion only to discover that Tokiomi is dead. In the interval, Rider attacks Irisfeel and Maya. Kiritsugu uses a command seal to order Saber to return to the storehouse, where she finds Maya injured and Irisfeel abducted by Rider, prompting her to give chase on her motorcycle. On reaching the storehouse, Kiritsugu finds the dying Maya and comforts her in her last moments through his own tears. As Saber chases Rider through the city on her motorcycle, she eventually catching up to Waver and Rider and realizing Irisfeel is not with them. Meanwhile, Kiritsugu realizes that Rider is not responsible for attacking Irisfeel, and Maya, leading him to conclude that Karya was behind his wife's kidnapping. He tortures Karya's brother Byakuya concerning Karya's whereabouts. Karya is revealed to be working with Kairi, who made a deal with him to kidnap Irisfeel using Berserkers for someone's glory in order to disguise himself as Rider. In return for the restoration of the two command seals this consumed and the promise of a duel with Tokiomi at the church. When Karya leaves, Kairi orders Zalkan to come out of hiding, and Zalkan remarks how Kairi relates to his enjoyment of watching Karya suffer, but Kairi drives him away. Saber later has a duel with Rider and destroys Rider's Gordius wheel before departing. Karya arrives at the church only to find Tokiomi's corpse, but Ai Tosaka arrives at the church soon after and assumes Karya to be her husband's killer. He attempts to explain the situation and places blame on Tokiomi for his treatment of her and Sakura, but Ai reprimands him for misunderstanding her and showing no love to anyone. Karya snaps and strangles Ai in a mental breakdown. By the time he comes to his senses, she is lying motionless on the floor. As Karya stumbles out of the church in despair, Archer and Kairi are shown to have been watching from the balcony, enjoying the tragedy as it unfolded. Waver returns home to the Mackenzie household and is greeted by Glenn Mackenzie, who Waver put under a spell along with Martha Mackenzie to make them believe that he was their grandson. However, Glenn notes that he and Martha are aware that Waver is not related to them, but still enjoyed his and Rider's company. In Castor's lair, Irisfeel is interrogated by Kairi, who believes that he is like Kiritsugu, but Irisfeel states that an empty man like Kairi has nothing in common with Kiritsugu, who is fighting for the Grail to wish for eternal world peace. Disappointed, Kairi kills her and vows to destroy Kiritsugu's dream. Later that night, Waver and Ryder see magical flares sent up near the theater, which is meant to lure them into a duel with Archer. As Ryder summons his horse Bucephalus, Waver decides to use all of his command seals to give Ryder the power he needs to win and conquer the world, as he feels he is no longer worthy of being his master. Instead, Ryder tells Waver that he considers him a friend and wants him to ride with him into battle. Kiritsugu and Saber see the flares as well, aware that they are a trap meant to gather the remaining masters and servants in the same area. Having sent out the flares, Kairi prepares for his fight with Kiritsugu, sending Berserker to deal with Saber and Archer to face off with Ryder. Meanwhile, Irisfeel's soul makes contact with the spirit within the Grail known as Angramaniu before disappearing. As Kiritsugu and Saber arrive at the theater on separate paths, Saber is attacked by a gun-wielding Berserker in the underground parking lot. Meanwhile, Waver and Ryder encounter Archer on the bridge. As they share a final toast before their duel, Ryder asks Archer to join forces with him and conquer the world and beyond, but Archer politely declines. Saber manages to destroy Berserker's gun but is startled to find he knows the exact length of her cloaked sword. She is shocked and devastated when Berserker's true identity is revealed to be Sir Lancelot, one of her most trusted knights of the Round Table. At the same time, a dying Karya begins hallucinating due to his guilt over strangling Ai. Ryder summons Ionian Heteroi and charges at Archer, but Archer pulls out his sword and uses his noble phantasm called Enuma Elish, which causes a massive rip in space and time, resulting in the destruction of Ionian Heteroi and sending them back into the real world. After Waver agrees to be Ryder's retainer, Ryder removes Waver from his horse and orders him to live on and pass down the tale of his final battle. Archer kills Ryder with and states that he respects Ryder as his equal before the latter passes away. In admiration of his loyalty to Ryder, Archer spares Waver's life and departs, leaving Waver in mourning. Kiritsugu finally meets Kairi, who has laid out his wife's body on the theater's stage. As Kiritsugu and Kairi engage in an intense duel, Saber shares a last conversation with Berserker before he dies by her hand. As Kiritsugu and Kairi both prepare to deliver the finishing blow to the other, a black ooze pouring from the Grail crashes through the ceiling and covers them. Kiritsugu finds himself in an illusory world where Angramaniu, taking the form of Irisfeel, tells him that he is worthy of using it to make a wish, making Kiritsugu the winner of the war. However, Kiritsugu is shocked to find that the Grail has been corrupted, and watches it deconstruct his belief in killing the few for the sake of the many, and being told no one can save the world and end conflict without killing off all of humanity. Angramaniu attempts to convince Kiritsugu to make his wish by assuming the forms of both Irisfeel and Ilia, promising he will be together with them again at the cost of everyone else. However, Kiritsugu rejects the Grail, declaring he will not sacrifice the rest of humanity for the sake of his personal happiness, and realizing that the Grail has been corrupted and now seeks only to turn Victor's wishes into global genocide. For his actions, he is cursed by Angramaniu, which shortens his lifespan. Back outside, Kairi scolds Kiritsugu for refusing the Grail and wasting the wish. Kairi pleads with Kiritsugu to give the wish to him so that he may find the meaning of his existence, but Kiritsugu shoots him. Saber soon arrives at the Grail stage and encounters Archer, who demands that she surrender and devote herself to him as his wife. Kiritsugu appears in the middle of their exchange, and to the horror of both servants, uses his two remaining command seals to force Saber to destroy the Holy Grail with Excalibur. The theater is demolished after Saber destroys the Grail, but Kiritsugu is shocked to see the Grail's black ooze pour down from the sky and flood the city, destroying everything it touches and engulfing Archer. Karya is seen leaving his basement to finally reunite Sakura with Rin, but in reality he collapses down the stairs and is consumed by the crest worms below, leading Sakura to accept her fate. Kairi awakens to see that the Grail has resurrected him and granted Archer a mortal body. Seeing that his wish of destruction and tragedy has come true, Kairi laughs hysterically at his own lack of humanity, but he seeks to fully understand his desire, and Archer agrees to follow him. In the aftermath of the destruction of the Grail, Kairi briefly notices Kiritsugu desperately searching for survivors in the burning rubble and becoming overjoyed to find a young boy named Shiru still alive. The next day, Waver asks Glenn and Martha to let him stay with them a while longer as he earns money to travel around the world and find his own path. After presiding over Tokiomi's funeral, Kairi meets Rin and her mother Ai, who has survived but suffered severe brain damage and does not comprehend that her husband is dead and Sakura is gone. Kairi gives Rin the Azoth dagger and relishes in her grief. Saber, having become a heroic spirit, again relives her final moments on the battlefield during her life, and remembers Lancelot's final words to her as he expressed his regret over having betrayed her. and falling in love with Guinevere. Saber grieves that she does not understand anyone and weeps for having seemingly failed as a king, promising to win the Holy Grail in the next war for their sake. A voiceover by Kiritsugu reveals that he attempted to return to the Einsburns many times, but Jubstashite von Einsburn, the head of the family, refused to open the forest's barrier since Kiritsugu did not return with the Grail, and thus he never saw Elia again. Instead, he decides to live in Fayuki City and adopt Shiru. 5 years later, Kiritsugu tells Shiru one summer night how he once wished to be a hero. Shiru promises his father that he will fulfill that dream for him. Due to the Grail's influence, Kiritsugu quietly passes away, reminiscing about the time when Shirley asked him what he wanted to grow up to be and concluding that he still wants to be a hero. And this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Also turn on notifications so you don't miss out on another video. Until next time, farewell.